Hey everyone, welcome to this recap tournament video. I had just played a GT the other weekend. You've seen my two latest battle reports with the return of Basement Wargaming here. Where we're prepping for this event, working on a Behemoth list, excuse me, with Mawlocs. And yeah, we played the event, and unfortunately I didn't get much video or photos. Just again, easing back into playing 40k consistently and not having attended any tournaments for a while. I want my focus to be fully on playing, but I am going to walk you through, if you were curious, on the results and talk about each matchup and how the list worked. So first things first, we're going to cover the list, everything I had, and then we're going to talk about the matches, my thoughts with each game, and then the post-event results, and then how I'm going to shape this list moving forward, because it was a lot of fun. I do think it has legs. I mean, 10th edition is coming. I'm very excited about that, obviously, with all the Tyranid stuff on the way, so potentially do a little video of that. Just so much happens in 40k rapidly, and with my busy schedule, it's hard for me to keep up content-wise of every little thing that's coming out, but I have seen it. I am amped, and I will do my best to do some coverage with that as well. That's also a reason I haven't done much Tyranid Tactical lately. Just things are changing so quickly, especially with 10th on the rise. We may just wait and do a ton of stuff when that drops. Lots of plans, very excited, loads of new models. Whew. Going to be good. So anyway, let's focus back on this video. So it was a 5-round event, the Deckbox Masters Tournament, 2 days, 3 games day 1, and then followed up with 2 more on day 2. So this is 2,000 points. We have Hive Fleet Behemoth, and my Warlord is the Hive Tyrant with Heavy Venom Cannon, Lash Whip Bone Sword. He had Direct Guidance for a Warlord trait, and had Paroxysm and the Horror for powers. Accompanied by the 3 Tyrant Guard. We have the Neurothrope back there, who had Synaptic Tendrils to handle the 3d6 cast. As you can see, my Psychic gang right there. The Neurothrope also had Onslaught Catalyst, 3 Zoanthropes with the Horror as the power, Maleceptor with Paroxysm and Psychic Scream, 5 Genestealers in the Elite slot, rounding that out. Then into the fast attack, we got my All-Stars here, my Raveners, my favorite, my snaky boys. So much fun. 2 units of 5, Deathspitters, Rending Claws. A unit of 5 Warriors, Devourers, and Rending Claws. So a little, there's a bit of a change. I needed more Synapse from my previous iteration of this list. And then we have the Parasite with Alien Cunning. And then finally we have, rounding out the troops, we have 10 Gargoyles. And then of course the 2 Mawlocs. We have 1 with Dermic Symbiosis, and then my Trigon over here acting as my other Mawloc with Synaptic Enhancement. So that is 2,000 points of Tyranids here. And I mentioned I played an event previously in February. That version didn't have the Mawlocs. It had, I believe it was 1 unit of Raveners as well, and it had Screamer Killers. So I pulled them out, wanted to try out the Mawlocs, as I felt my my list previously kind of ran out of steam turn 2 or 4 when it came to scoring for objectives. Definitely did a lot of killing with it, but when it came to scoring, it was a little on the not so great side. So that's why I went with the Mawlocs, to get some objective play, open up some secondary options. So that's what we went with. And yeah, it was, so the whole goal is utilize the Mawlocs for potentially behind enemy lines. I am Territorial Instincts. I probably should have mentioned that with Behemoth. So OBSEC with them. Maleceptor takes the middle, along with Zoe's backing up. Genestealers forward deployed to do any actions, or just grab an early objective if needed, or for a little bit of counterpunch. I know 5 isn't the best with the fight on death with Behemoth. A little bit higher of a number would be better in exchanging for trades, depending on what came their way. But we're going to go with, we went with them, see how it played. And of course, the Raveners are my aggressive tool. Very fast, very killy. We play on UKTC terrain. As you can see here, we got this in Basement Wargaming, our own setup of that, so we can mirror the tournament settings if we're playing a competitive match. And they are fantastic on that. Loads of places to hide, loads of spots to overrun. The previous list with the Screamer Killers lacked a little bit of the Synapse, so I had to be a little bit more careful with movement. Having the Warriors in here definitely made up the difference, and having a Synaptic Enhanced Mawloc also just was some backup. It wasn't my primary source of protecting Raveners, but it was just kind of some gravy if positioning could work out that way. The one thing I'm not too sure about was the Warriors, a unit of 5, or if I should go with a unit of just 3 for Synapse. But we were in that awkward spot where I had 60 points left, and I was like, what do I do with that? Like, what do I take? So I was like, I just throw 2 more bodies in, clears chaff with the Devourers. and some alright-ish counter charge capability for them. They were likely to stay to the mid to backfield, and probably more backfield, but yeah, so, or move forward a little bit with some Ravagers. But yeah, that's the overall game plan with the list. With the Gargoyles being able to help with RBD and doing jumping actions, combined with the Maleceptor, allowed them to advance and do the work that needed to be done. So a bit more flexibility over the previous list on what I could do. The other thing the previous list had was 2 Tyrants with Balethorn and Shard Gullet. I just, you know what, I just don't find the investment for that. I mean, if it works, it works, but then even if one of those shots bounces, it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of investment for something that just, I don't know. I'm not sold on it. I mean, if you're going a full shooty list, definitely having that extra oomph in there is great, but excuse me, I don't know. I'm not sold on it. I know it's good. I know a lot of people, and you see it performing well, but just for this particular build, let's say, I didn't find it was necessary, let's say. So yeah, so we're gonna jump into each round and just gonna talk you through it. I have a couple photos just for reference to kind of help take a look at everything. So yeah, so we'll jump right into it. First game was against Space Wolves. They had tons of Melta jump packs on, so I think there was the Wolf Guard. I don't know a lot of these, the name, especially the Space Wolves, just so many wolves this, wolf that. But jump pack, Wolf Guard, I believe it was. They had Meltas in there. Then he had Terminators with Meltas. He had Sky Claws, I think they were called, with Meltas. Long Fangs with Las Cannons and Plasma, I think it was. Then another unit of Plasma, and then a Terminator in each wolf leader, wolf pack, whatever they're called. The Terminator Sergeant, whatever he was. Yeah, so that was what we were looking at. Playing Secure Missing Artifacts was the mission, so deployment right away was pretty favorable. He did have 2 units of Infiltrators, which was why I actually started this Mawloc, the Synaptic one, on the table, which actually paid off. You'll hear about that in a minute. So I got first turn, which let me be very dominant in positioning for everything, allowed me to get the Mawloc right to the center of the table. One of these L's here was right near the middle. The Mawloc was able to get there along with the Parasite and Maleceptor. I spawned out some Rippers, and then I actually placed the other Mawloc coming up in the center, as I really just wanted to gunk him up. If I could hold him back and slap the Mortals down with the Maleceptor, that was going to be the key to my victory, where I don't have much range, and then allow the Raveners to bully one of these side objectives with the Genestealers holding the other one near the top up here, so with the Raveners pushing down this way, if you're looking at the table. So yeah, it was just right off the rip, I got positioned very well. I didn't do much turn 1 in terms of damage, but then into his turn, with the Ripper screening at the Maleceptor, he wasn't able to get near them. He couldn't quite get into a position as well where he could do any shooting with the Meltas. So instead of launching all his guys forward, he went for the counter charge. And then into my turn, it was just devastating as the Mawloc, the one on the ground, made it in. And all said and done, this Mawloc actually lived to the end of the game. This fell over here. 5 Terminators, I think 4 or 5 Long Fangs, then I think 3 Infiltrators, and just was an absolute animal. The old Mandible Jaws, it was gobbling like a Terminator each turn. It was a riot. So he tied up Long Fangs and a Terminator unit right from the rip. Excuse me, and the 4-up Invul actually on turn 2 coming in clutch, and if it wasn't for that, he would have actually died quite easily, but it saved him, kept him going enough to do the damage that was needed to those units, tie up at the end of the board, and that was the units that were looking to come down and attack one of my Ravener units. So the Raveners just harassed the bottom quarter of the table, kept the end objective in my favor the whole game. The end score was 81 to 56 for the Tyranids. Could have scored a little higher on secondaries, but there was a few that he didn't quite give up enough, and for more points. And it was also just, it was a good warm-up game, get a good feel for the list. I only had 2 practice matches with it. So far here, everything played exactly how I wanted it to. I don't think there's really any misplays or anything that I would change about how I played the game. I think I played the counter charge very well, forced him to kind of play my game, which was the goal with this list, and the Mawloc as well, just really throwing him off. So being on the table and just, yeah, the sheer number of attacks, shoot through the Long Fangs, yeah, it was good for me there. So that was round 1. We got 1 win on the board. We're heading into round 2. We are up against the Necrons into this match. So A bit of an interesting list. Made up of a monolith, which was different for me because I didn't really have. I mean, I had tons of mortal wounds to do on it, but not really a whole lot of shooting or anything to chip away at it. There was, I believe, 2 units of 20 warriors. This was Mephrit Dynasty, so the longer range guns, and they had the shorter range weapons. The I can't remember what they're called. Not the Ghost Flayers, but the other one on the warriors. So they were up to 15 inch range, high AP on them though. Which definitely helped, and then a few units of Scorpex, the Silent King, and a Ghost Ark, and then there was 2 characters in there as well. So in this matchup, it's just I got first turn again. I was able to zone. Oh yeah, and the unit of Death Marks, deep striking for objective work too. I was just able to get positioned too fast for him to react. The Raveners got positioned. There was this small tiny L here was positioned near his deployment, and I was able to hide in there with the Raveners. Basically it was like this. I could launch out, kill something, and then come back. They were able to hold the objective with the Parasite. They were screening it, and also spawned out some Rippers over there too, and they did so much work for me. The Mawlocs also really threw him off, as he wasn't really kitted to kill them. The first Mawloc came up and it absorbed all of his shooting, getting a clutch command reroll on one of the I don't remember the mirrors. I don't remember the name for the Silent King. His little rocks, and getting a clutch in-ball arrow, so it would have been 6 damage coming through, and that made the difference. That forced him to have to charge them with Scorpex and the Silent King. And my screening as well, getting the first turn between having the Genestealers forward deploying Gargoyles and the Raveners being far ahead, and my Psychic Boys taking the middle. I forced his monolith to have to come in the bottom quarter, just below his deployment zone, so really out of position. He charged the Scorpex into the Raveners, and then I interrupted play with them, and they absolutely blended the Scorpex, overkilled him quite a bit. And then it was pretty much game at that point. I had him contained fully into his deployment. The farthest he got, he had a unit of Scarabs and a few warriors. Made it out to the center for one of his secondaries. But aside from that, he was contained into his deployment zone the entire game, as I was able just to harass everything forward. End score was 86, I believe it was, to 40, I think 45 was the end result. So yeah, just Tyranid domination in terms of positioning. There's really not a whole lot he could have done to get out of there. Even turn 1, I was able to, even if he had turn 1, I was able to hide enough, and I still think with his fast and with the Genestealers being forward deployed, I would have screened the Monolith out. In hindsight, we talked about it after, definitely would have been the play to keep the Monolith on the table. Dice kind of came a little bit into my favor early in the game. I know it's something you can't really always rely on, or factor in. But the Zoanthropes doing a collective 18 mortal wounds over 2 turns, so they went bonkers after the first game. I mean, they did well, but they didn't really do a ton for the average number of wounds they could do. So they made up for it here. So good boys, coming in hot. Excuse me. So that's 2-0 thus far in this 5-round event, and then we head into round 3 and we encounter Astra Militarum. So this game honestly was over before it began. This is my first game against them with the new codex, and who doggy was it miserable. Yeah, there was nothing I could really do here. They have so many tricks, so many crazy abilities that there's just my list in particular. It was probably one of the worst matchups for me. I mean, there's a few other ones, but this one probably was one of the worst for my build. Being that he had, I think it was the banner could hand out a buff to an infantry unit and just chain it through units, so any forward infantry unit he chose nothing could deep strike within 12, so all you ever had to do was move to where the Mawloc marker was, and it would die. I could keep them on the table, which might have been okay, but his tanks would have just obliterated them off the table, being that all my infantry were hiding anyway, so his tanks didn't have much targets to begin with. Yeah, so, and then he had the Karskin squads where they teleport, and yeah, it was bad. End score was 97 for the Militarum to 55. I mean, I got a few points on the board, but yeah, all of a sudden, then even after the game, I asked him, I was like, what could I have done differently? What do you think was was there any other plays you would have done? He's like, honestly, just what do you do? And he fully agreed that Militarum are just bonkers. The Karskin being able to hand out 6 mortal wounds to 3 different units is just insane. But In saying that, I played Tyranids last year with the book drop, so what goes around comes around, they say. So just, yeah, nothing you can do here. Unfortunately, even in losses, I never care if I take the L, but I like being able to learn something from it and come away from the match having learned something. Unfortunately, in this, it's just Codex creep. There's not a ton you could have done, so didn't help me for planning into day 2 a whole lot. But it's okay. We're 2-1. The goal is 3-2. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Would love the ultimate goal to hit 4-1. I don't think there's any way I'm winning the event right now, especially with the players and a few of the lists that were in it. But going 4-1 would have been phenomenal. So those are my 2 goals. 3-2. If we hit that, yeah. Going 4-1, phenomenal. So we're 2-1. The dream is still alive. We head into day 2, and we come back the next day. And the first match we get is against Custodes. So they have big brick of Wardens, I believe it was, with Trajan. We're playing tear down their icons, the old bomb mission. I actually played well, should play well for me with a lot of my units I can move forward, plus Genestealers and Gargoyles being able to jump around. We'll see how everything's shaped up. But going back to the rest of his list, he had some armigers, 3 armigers, jumping in with the Custodes. I said Trajan, the big board and brick. 2 lone Terminators that were teleporting in with a Contemptor. And then I believe it was 3x3 units of Wardens, I think they're called. Like this, the standard Custode dudes. Yeah. So it was a tough matchup for me, being that I have no range shooting, anything that could do damage from far, except Mortal Wounds, which he has a crispy 4-up. Feel no pain against them. So really this game came down to how well can he roll 4-up Feel No Pains. And what it came down to is he did roll them very well. I think he made like 75% of his 4-up Feel No Pains he made, which was really bad for me. It was a really challenging game. They are tough to kill, very, very challenging, especially when your damage outputs is the Mortal Wounds. And just their defensive buffs are, they're not unstoppable, but I found if you had to at least have 2 units getting into melee to really force him to choose where the defensive buffs go. Unfortunately for me, I had 1 Ravener unit kind of take on the large blob of Wardens. We chipped them down quite a bit. I took no prisoners as one of my secondaries, RBD and Warp Ritual. This was a tight game. It was very enjoyable. In the end, it was 72-68 for the Tyranids, squeaking out a tiny, tiny win. Very challenging game. Like I said, what it came down to is how much of the 4-up Feel No Pains would he tank, because I could pump out a lot of Mortal Wounds when you get down to it. But it was really enjoyable. It gave me a really good feel for how I would face up against such a tough elite army. Positioning-wise, I asked him afterwards if he thought I could do anything different, because I really focused a Ravener unit, the Mawlocs as well, both coming up by where the Wardens were with Trajan, and they more or less kind of slaughtered me. The Maleceptor also went over there to Psychic and charged in, but had I have not contained that break with Trajan, because he had behind enemy lines. He also had some bikers too, I forgot about those. He would have easily just plowed into my deployment, wiped out everything there, I think, based off how everything was going. So while I was getting kind of dominated in terms of killing, I held him in place, which, you know what, in the end was really important. The clutch move to the end of the game, I had 1 warrior left alive after a Contemptor and some Terminators came to fight them teleporting in. And that warrior's planted a bomb. And yeah, that clinched me. I would have been a tie. Yeah, it would have been a tie if I didn't get that bomb planted in the very last turn. So really clutch there. Fantastic game. Learned a lot from that. So like I said just a few minutes ago, being able to walk away from a game, even with a win that's small like that, being able to learn something. If it was on the flip side losing, there's definitely a few plays that it could have adjusted slightly. But in the end, we were able to clutch it up. And I was feeling much better about my secondary work as well, kind of getting to the swing things, seeing how the list can also evolve too, which is really important. As I will talk about the evolution and my plans to swap up this list, because it is a lot of fun. It fits my playstyle, how I like to play Tyranids. I know there's probably a lot of other builds and different options that are likely more optimal, but it's working for me, I think, and I want to kind of take it forward as, again, 9th is ending, so I may as well just have a excuse me, have a ball with them here. To end 9th edition. So here we go, 3-1. All I need to do is win one more round, and it will actually put me into the top 4, which is pretty huge. Very, very excited about that. Final matchup, we are playing Tide of Conviction, the hold 2, hold 3, and we are against Slaanesh Demons. So I actually played them at the previous event when I had the Screamer Killers. It was a really good game. I lost that, I think it was 82 or 84 to 76 or 78. So it was a really tight game. It was my very first time playing any form of Slaanesh, so I learned a lot from that going into this rematch. So it was actually the same mission too, same guy, same army, a few minor tweaks. So it was going to be a grinder. We were both fighting to get into that top 4. So it was a really good game. He ended up going first, which was really detrimental for me, where he got to get positioned a lot faster than I did. Slaanesh is just so fast. No, not really any shooting though, outside of the whip from one of the keepers. There. Oh, sorry, I should go over the list. He had 3 keepers, 3 units of fiend, 2 3-man ones, 1 5-man one, 2 units of seekers. I believe there was 5 in each seeker unit, 2 units of 10 demonettes, and then he had 3 characters. I don't know their names. One had a big, essentially a dark lance shooting, and then the other 2 were there for psychic work. So yeah, this is actually a really good matchup. I was very excited to see how the Mawlocs would play out, coming up in his backfield, being that he wants to plow forward. He wants to come take my objectives, and having the Mawlocs coming and sitting back, really the only thing that could deal with him too being the keeper. So it's either does the keeper go back, or do I just get to score some free behind enemy lines points? With that, for objectives, I went with assassination, being that there's 3 little characters, and then 3 keepers. And keepers will die quite easily to the mortals if I can get positioned to get those off. And between the Mawlocs, the Gargoyles RBDing, jumping around within circle, that's what I went with. And it was an absolute grinder of a match. So he was able to push forward. Actually, this is Tide of Conviction here, so we're going to look at the table a little bit. Yeah, same setup too, so we'll kind of sit here. So I had this end, there's supposed to be an L here, similar to that end. My previous game against him, I had to, again, not playing them. I didn't know a lot about the army, so it was a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for, and not at all saying my opponent didn't tell me. It's just, again, right before an event or a match when you have to absorb an entire army's worth of information in Warhammer. It's a lot to take in, so having now played them, it was just kind of, I felt more prepared, especially when it came to deployment. And again, I want to emphasize there's no gotchas or anything like that. It was just absorbing all the knowledge and then just kind of determining how am I going to play off of that. So what I did this time with the Fiends, with that -2 stratagem, which really killed me last time. I failed a lot of powers because of that, especially when it came to Mortal Wounds. So I actually spread my Psychers out a little bit. Had the Zoanthropes on one side, Maleceptor in the middle, then the Tyrant and the Neurothrope over onto the other side. Excuse me. That way, I could at least guarantee half of my psychic stuff going off very consistently. And then I still had enough Synapse. I had the Warriors at the back too, so Synaptic Chains would still work, getting the 3d6 cast out where I needed to go off, or even just get that off and just move it away a little bit. So he was able to push forward with 1 keeper coming this way, 1 straight down the middle, then 1 kind of coming to that side. Over on this side, I had Genestealers, 1 unit of Raveners, Parasite there. So I made 1 huge mistake. Mistake I made. So over on that side, that was actually the gap. It was actually a little bit tighter, but the keeper actually couldn't move through. The gap was too small, and it was so close. I should have checked to see, so I kept the Parasite back, spawned the Rippers onto the objective. He dominated the game on primaries for me. I didn't start scoring primaries till turn 3. I think I got 4, then it was I got 8, then 12, so it did better, and then with the overrun points as well. But I should have just had the obsec from the Parasite screened by the Rippers, and I would have been back enough that I wouldn't have to sweat it about the keeper getting to him if he decided to do any shooting over there, because he had the 1 character in the middle that could have killed a swarm or 2, because I only had 2 swarms that didn't roll well there, so I was kind of worried, is he going to kill them? Will he focus there? But yeah, so that cost me some points. That's cost me 4 points, and when you hear the end score, you're going to hear, spoiler, that it kind of sucked. But aside from that, the rest of the game played well. Sent the Raveners over there. They ended up taking out some Fiends and a unit of Seekers, but then the Keeper came around and wrecked them. But the whole idea there is keeping one of the Keepers away, again, to let the Mawlocs come in. So if it was over there, I'd sent a Mawloc to the back corner over on this end to get some behind enemy line points. And then from there, the Mawloc came around, ate some Daemonettes, and scored me that objective, with the other Mawloc grabbing his back one, denying him his CP, and then that other keeper had to come back, with the other two keepers coming forward. In the end, I was able to hold them off. The list I played previously against them with the Screamers, I didn't have enough screening. I ran out of steam there, and then the keepers got into my Psychic and into my stuff early. Thankfully, this time around, I had the Warriors to kind of block the way, along with the Tyrant Guard going up early. So it definitely made the difference, and the Warriors getting RBD done early with the Gargoyles picking up the slack for the other quarters. I was actually able to get all my RBD done. This was actually my best game for secondary the whole event. The end score for this ended up being 84-80. Oh, what a game. It was insane. The last turn, I racked up a ton of points. Again, over there, that was the difference maker. And there was also one point, this L was right here. I killed a unit right at the tip of it. There was a, I think, Daemonettes unit. Used Raveners to overrun. And I had a Tyrant Guard in this objective, I believe it was, tied with a Keeper. All I had to do was put 2 of the Raveners there, and I would have denied him 4 points. Potentially picked up myself 4 extra points. But I pulled them back here off of the objective. Reason being is the other keeper was coming this way. I'm like, do I screen the Maleceptor? Potentially, if he makes it through, because he had the whip. I had 3 Raveners left, and if he killed the Raveners, that would have killed them and allowed him to come down into the Maleceptor. So I was like, I could pull them back, or I could put them there, block the Maleceptor a little bit, and hopefully stall his movement. In the hindsight, so that's the thing, hindsight. And then, because into my turn, into the next turn, he actually whipped really hard. He did 3 wounds to 1 Ravener with his Keeper. That's even with the whip. I went insane with Feel No Pains, and some unfortunate hit rolls and wound rolls for him. Then into melee, just again, the Feel No Pains, just insane. Tank those. He also split his attacks against the Neurothrope too, which did help, of course. But yeah, if I just did that, it would have. There's 2 moments where I could have won the game, but I was just a little hesitant. But all said and done, outside of those 2 moments, I think I played the game very well. I did really good. My turn 4 Psychic, though, was abysmal. I think it was turn 3 or turn 4, I can't remember. One of them, I failed every single Psychic test, even without the -2 aura from the Fiend unit that was there. Even without that aura, I failed every single Psychic test on 3d6 for a few guys too. So that part was really brutal. Had that have gone even more average, I think I would have had the game quite well. Hard to say how everything would have shaped up from there, but I would have been in the driver's seat for sure. All said and done, I missed placing the top 4 by 4 mere points, but a fantastic game. It was really tense. Great way to end the day. I was exhausted mentally. It's just I haven't played any 2-day events in quite some time, but it was great. Had a lot of fun, and it was one of those games again where taking the loss, it sucked, but you got to walk away from it learning something, which I think is super important, which shapes up a good player from a bad player. And I like when losses happen that you can walk away learning something rather than just you lost just because of dice or just playing against a stronger codex. There's just nothing you can do. At least this way you learn something, and yeah, you feel good about it. But yeah, so that's the end of the event here. All said and done, I think I placed 9th out of 28. I think there's a few drops. Originally there was 32 players, I believe, but a few drops between the 2 days. But 9th out of 28, not too bad at all. Previously I placed the tournament before that, I think it was 34 players, and I placed 18th there. So moving on up, would have been in the top 4. Really cool to see that performance. There's a ton of matchups though that I will 100% admit that I dodged. That would have really bad for me. But you know what? The list is performing well. It's evolving, and I'm having fun kind of improving the list and getting my feet back to what I feel made me a fairly good Tyranid player. Because the codex before, when it first launched, I will fully admit it made me feel a little too comfortable, and I got lax on a lot of movement. But we're getting tight again with how we play, and you know what? It's brought back a joy and a happiness for playing competitive play again. It makes it challenging, and the wins feel more rewarding. We'll say that. So moving forward, changing the list here. This is kind of what's on the table. You may see a battle coming up for me this weekend. for you, it might be next week when you see this battle report. If you watched thus far, it's a long video, just me talking, so I really appreciate that. If you're sticking around for that. But here's where I see the list going. Right now, I think I'm going to trim one Mawloc. One Mawloc's going to go. I'm actually going to do something pretty bold. I'll talk about that in a second. The Warriors, I think, are getting fully cut as well. They out of everything, were probably the one thing that just didn't perform for me. They were there for Synapse, but outside of that, it was a big points investment for just Synapse. So I'm going to trim them. We're going to add in another Neurothrope that can move forward with Raveners or just act as a Synapse beacon. Allow me to be a bit more aggressive with spells too, and to be honest, it'll make Ritual even easier. So we're going for that, so that's my extra Synapse covered, and outside of that, the Warriors didn't do a ton, so that'll make up for it. With the other Mawloc on, we're tossing in, I think, a unit of Hormagaunts, potentially 10 more Gargoyles, and a Lictor, being that it's going to up our objective work behind enemy lines. I think will be scored very easily with that. With the Mawloc, a Lictor, a unit of Gargoyles, plus everyone pushing forward, we're bumping both Genestealer units up to 2 8-man units. We're also cutting the Tyrant Guard. This is where it gets kind of bold. I don't know how it'll work, and trimming the gun on the Tyrant. So without the Tyrant Guard, the Tyrant's just going to sit back. He's there for buffing. And the other interesting thing I'm going to try out is pull off Direct Guidance, slap it onto this guy, put Synaptic Tendrils on this guy, so I can hand out the buff of reroll 1s out twice. So that means I can either buff the 2 units of Genestealers or 2 units of Raveners. So it adds more flexibility in what I can do. And then Direct Guidance is still in play on a Neurothrope. And I have 2 Neurothropes, so I'm essentially getting 2 3d6 casts anyway. The Neurothropes are good at casting on their own, so I can hand that out to Zoanthropes if I want to go crazy, or the Maleceptor plus 1 Neurothrope if I really want Catalyst to go off. Yeah, so it excuse me, opens up tons there. I think this one will play secondaries even better, still be very good at scoring primaries. I have really no shooting outside of these guys, but the mortal wound output goes up, and yeah, I think it'll play the game better. I can score more efficiently, more reliably, and I have objectives that I feel better built to do. So yeah, that's kind of how it's going to go forward. We'll see if we can get a game in this weekend, test it out. Should be good. Good time doing that. So thank you so much everyone for watching this long rambling video of me sitting here talking. There's a couple photos, so hopefully you enjoyed those. The next tournament I'll try my best to get a few more action shots now that we're back into the swing of things, and hopefully this gave you some insights on this I would say different build for Tyranids, especially don't see Raveners a ton now, or the double Mawlocs, but I love it. Thank you so much for everyone watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you to our patrons, Teos and Sarlinked. Appreciate your support for the channel so much, especially as we get back to regularly releasing either a video like this or a battle report every week. So thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see if we can hit that 4-1 to end the season.